Jerry and Charlie riding through the airwaves, bringing you the heat. Come on, pull your bands, now get up out your seat. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. Now you're listening to Shea Station.
Today is Tuesday, December 2nd, the 238th episode of Shea Station, and we got some things to talk about. Most notably, in addition to the bullpen, Devin Williams, a 3-year deal with the New York Mets. Another former Yankee pitcher looking for redemption with the crosstown team. I am one of your hosts, Jack, a.k.a. Jolly Olive, and joining me today, the most beautiful words in the English language, joining me is Jerry Blevins from Ohio with the snow day. Kids running around crazy in the background, but he's putting in work. Jerry, I haven't gotten to asking in a while. How you doing, man?
I'm great, buddy. This feels like forever. You know what I mean? Getting the band back together.
Last time we talked, it was down in the dumps too, so I'm happy to be here today.
It was a tough one, so it's nice to, like you said, it's a snow day. Christmas season, like this is good times.
Yeah, it's snow day for you. It was the storm that wasn't over here in the tri-state, so I don't know what happened.
What I figured out in New York mostly is you guys get Ohio weather like the next day.
Great.
So maybe, I don't know how storms work, but it's literally like the same day, but you're a day behind.
I'll be looking forward to that then. I'll be looking forward to the snowstorm coming tomorrow.
That's my meteorology, expertise at best. But,
I trust you more than the weather app, honestly.
I'll tell you, it's really nice to kind of talk a positive Mets thing because they signed a high-end reliever. I think that's fun. So I'm excited to talk through it with you and take a look at that bullpen. So
yeah, nice to have the bullpen expert on the show. Also, definitely have to get your thoughts on the Nimmo trade. We will get to that when we get to that. Also, just some overall off-season talk as we catch up a little bit here. Before we get into that, you mentioned it's Christmas season, Jerry, and I'd be remiss if I did not bring up Field of Dreams whiskey really quick at the top of our show because you guys have a brand new line going out right now, the All-Star whiskey, barrel from every major league market, all 30 of them blended together with the corn from the fields in the Field of Dreams of Iowa. Brand new product. The link for it is directly in the description of the show right now. I know what I'm getting my dad for Christmas, spoilers, or my fiance's dad as well. This feels like a layup. The bottle is absolutely awesome. Do you want to speak a little bit about the new line going out right now?
Sure. So we're baseball guys that like whiskey. We didn't know it going in, but we try a bunch of different things. This is by far the biggest blend of distilleries into, like, by far.
Yeah.
Where this is 30 different ones, one from every major league market. We try a bunch of stuff and sometimes it tastes terrible. I thought this one was going to be bad. It is my favorite one that we have. It truly is. It's like super complex. It's got some sweetness because of the corn. It tastes a little caramelly. It's got some smokiness, some spice. Like every time I take a sip, it's different. We did one from every major league market. Our youngest is from Arizona. It's like a 1-year, aged rapidly in 5-gallon barrels out in the Arizona desert. And then our oldest we got from Canada is a 25-year Canadian whiskey that we blended in. It averages out to just under 7. It is delicious, truly is. I'm very proud of it. And the bottle's super cool. We got like the ring on top, but it's my favorite one that we've done. It caught me off guard how good it is. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you. And if you have Field of Dreams in stores in your state, it's probably coming because of the government shutdown. There were some delays and things, but go to drinkfieldofdreams.com and find it there, or the link in the description. Thank you.
Link in the description at the top will be the brand new whiskey. I like hearing you talk shop, and I can tell you're very excited about it. So if you're listening, go support our guy. Get yourself an easy Christmas present out of the way because it's going to sneak up on you. Suddenly you're going to be 2 weeks out and you don't know what to get. Dad, take care of it right now with the link in our description. Okay, we got some news to chop up. The notable one, Devin Williams, comes over to the New York Mets on a 3-year, $50 million deal. The Mets have entered the deferral game. $15 million of this has been deferred, $5 million annual. So that saves a little bit of money on the payroll. The deal comes with no opt-outs or options, which is very interesting. It's a very secure landing for Devin Williams in free agency. He's coming off one of the most chaotic, tumultuous years of his career, a 4.79 ERA, negative WAR. When you look at it from the outset, it's a little bit raising an eyebrow, kind of scary. I definitely raised an eyebrow when I got the notification and a flurry of texts from coworkers and friends. I streamed last night to kind of digest the information, and the more reactions I saw from Met fans and non-Met fans and just general baseball fans, the more I started to like the signing. It's also the third year in a row that David Stearns has kicked off his offseason by signing a Yankees pitcher who's coming off the most infamous season of his career. It's Severino, Clay Holmes, and now Devin Williams. I'm starting to think it's just an annual thing, but we brought in the lefty from the bullpen to get his expert opinion. What are your first initial thoughts about the Devin Williams signing?
You nailed it. Well, first of all, he's 2 for 2, Stearns on those two. So hopefully he's 3 for 3 here. This one's I think it's a good one.
Yeah.
I initially tweeted out, scary. I'm happy. It's scary not because of Devin Williams and the contract. I think the contract is like a buy low number, to be honest. But I was scared because he's good enough to where I can see a lot of lesser teams, or even, the Mets are kind of in this weird space where they're just like, that's our closer. Like, he could be that's kind of what they did with the rotation last year and the year before. They just were like, I think we have a piece. We don't need to go out and get that front end starter because I think our guys will fill it in. Didn't work out last year. That's why I'm worried about it. But the truth is, I think Devin Williams is an excellent relief pitcher. I know he's had his ups and downs, highlighted mostly by Pete Alonso's home run that kind of started it off. But his peripheral numbers are excellent. I think most of it's like minor tweaks here and there that he had a good run in that second half of the season. He looked locked in. His K rate was back up to his career levels. He looked like the Devin Williams of old. So what huge bumps in the roads that he had with the Yankees, especially early in the season, losing his closer job. I look like he righted the ship to me, and I'm excited for the signing. A 3-year, $50 million for a potential closer. I think it's a good deal, especially, with where he's at in his career.
Yeah, me, you, and many other Mets fans, I think, had a very similar reaction of this is a domino signing. Like, I need to see what comes after it. And if it's followed by Edwin Diaz's return, then it's fantastic because you have two pitchers who are in the top 8 of strikeout percentage among all relievers as your 8 and 9 in your bullpen. I do agree that this is something I could see the Mets painting as their fallback option for closer if they're unable to, let's be real, beat the Dodgers in the bidding war for Edwin Diaz, because it's looking like it's going to be a 2-horse race between the Mets and the Dodgers. But when I compare it to like the Tanner Scott signing last year and a couple of the other bullpen contracts of years past, I think it's pretty decent value for what Devin Williams is, which is a strikeout first pitcher, stuff over command, which is, we know that's what the Mets like in their pitching model. That's the kind of guys they like to sign. I really thought they were going to go hard after Dylan Cease for that exact reason. And the two guys who have signed earliest this offseason for big money, both are coming off years where their ERA was decently high. So it's very clear that the market does not care about that as much more the under the hood stuff like fielding independent pitching, strikeout rates, barrel rates, all that kind of stuff. You mentioned the second half. Down the stretch, the only guy who was striking out more batters out of the bullpen than Devin Williams was Mason Miller, who was basically perfect for the San Diego Padres. Williams had the second highest K rate behind him in the second half there. Doesn't allow home runs, which I like. I mean, it was kind of I figured the Mets were going to land in a pick your poison kind of situation when they got one of these bullpen arms. And we're going to talk about the bullpen as a whole because the Mets need to do a lot more to fill out that bullpen. But I figured behind Edwin Diaz, whatever happens there, it's going to be either Robert Suarez or Devin Williams. And it was a pick your poison situation. Do you want Devin Williams, who's more susceptible to walking guys, who ranks in the 33rd percentile of walk rate? Or do you want Robert Suarez, who's a lot of four seams, a lot of velo, a little bit older, but he's also really susceptible to the home run ball? It makes it clear to me in the Mets philosophy that they much prefer guys that are going to be more susceptible to walking, which we've seen for the past 2 years in the Mets pitching staff. Even when they were good in 2024, they were walking the world while they were doing it. So it's going to be more of that. And if that pains you as a Mets fan, you can join the boat here because it's not exactly a fun watch. But when Devin
Definitely
Williams,
keeps the heart rate up.
it keeps the heart rate up. It's free base runners, but when Devin Williams is right, especially in his time with the Brewers from 2021 to 2024, 195 innings, a 1.89 ERA, 68 saves in that window, the third most valuable reliever in baseball in that window, right behind Edwin Diaz. So again, if this leads to a pairing of him and Diaz at the back end, I think the Mets did really well for themselves here, but we got to see what dominoes fall.
Yeah. I mean, you're smart. You know what you're talking about.
Hey, thanks, man. You got to say that to me more, honestly.
Yeah. Well, you bring me in for expertise, but you seem to have it. But you're right though about the bullpen. So some of the names that they picked up Brooks Raley's option.
Sneaky great move, honestly.
He was unbelievable for the Mets last year.
Yes.
AJ Minter's going to be coming back. Then outside of that, you got Bratzabon still, Austin Warren, Richard Lovelady, Brandon Waddell. Like you have these overabundance of lefties. Yeah. So who knows what that's gonna mean. But you also have Daniel Nunez at some point. You know, you had Tommy John. You're not worried about that. Yeah. Reed Garrett had Tommy John, so he's out. But you got Drew Smith is probably right on the borderline here.
They declined his option. He's not coming back.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
I was surprised by that.
Happen?
That happened pretty early in the offseason. It was a very quiet move. And I was honestly surprised because it was a low value option.
Exactly. Yeah. And they wore through it last year. It seems like.
And it's the first friend of Shea Station, so it's brutal. It's brutal for our brand.
But but they have outside of Devin Williams, Minter, who's coming off injury, and Brooks Raley, and then Bratzabon still is kind of like, who is he, right? You know, he's inconsistent in that area. They need at least Edwin Diaz plus maybe another guy, I think. Yeah. Especially with their question marks in the rotation. This definitely helps, though. He makes your team better. Devin Williams makes your team better. Would be elite in the 8th inning, and I think if who knows what happens. I don't want to work under the assumption that we're going to get Edwin Diaz because
you shouldn't. Yeah,
it's not. To me, it's a coin flip. Yeah. I honestly feel that way. They've shown not disloyalty, but they've shown that they're not about nostalgia. Edwin Diaz is the best on the market by far, but they're also not willing to overpay if that's what they think is happening. So I don't want to be shocked if they sign elsewhere. I'll be disappointed if Edwin Diaz, for many reasons, mostly because he's the best closer and on the market by far. But I won't be shocked if he goes elsewhere. So I mean, for a fallback, Devin Williams, if he slides back into the 9th inning role, not ideal. Volatility, a little bit more question marks than you're hoping for, but he's capable of doing it. So I think he makes this team significantly better already. I think that's the sentiment you got to take away. Even if you're kind of uncomfortable and you're like, oh, it's another former Yankee, we're gonna have to deal with getting made fun of a little bit here. It makes the team better. And when you outline the bullpen, you mentioned the guys at the back end who I like to refer to as like the option army, the guys that were just up and down all year. All their options are gone. Bratzabon has one, and then everyone else you mentioned has none. So the Mets have a lot of work to do to not only get established relief arms on the market, but also the guys that they found in the stockpile last year that had 3-4 options that they could send up and down to do the maneuvering that they did so much of last year. Yeah, I think, honestly, no one behind Minter and Raley is safe and honestly should be on the opening day roster in a perfect world. But obviously, it's going to be competitive in the relief market more so than anywhere else because prices are down and every team needs pitching. And also, as much as I loved what we saw from AJ Minter in April and loved what we saw from Brooks Raley down the stretch, neither one of those guys are guaranteed to give you a full season. They have some injury baggage that comes with them. Raley was coming off Tommy John surgery. It's honestly amazing that signing worked out the way that it did. It's just everything around him fell apart in the bullpen besides Edwin Diaz. And speaking of Edwin Diaz, I know you mentioned the Mets don't overpay, which I fully agree with. That's part of their philosophy now. And they don't act on nostalgia, which is why the Pete Alonso situation unfolded the way it did last year. But if they do bring back Edwin Diaz on what I have to assume is going to be a 5-year deal, probably a repeat of what he got last time with a little bit more,
you're talking about Edwin Diaz becoming the best closer in Mets history, the most accomplished closer. He'll probably pass John Franco in saves. He's at 144 right now. Franco is around double that number. And I wonder if there is any nostalgic value there. I wonder if Steve Cohen kind of, steps his foot in the door a little bit the way he did with Pete Alonso. And I wonder what that clubhouse looks like if Pete Alonso does come back and interacts with Devin Williams. I got to think they're going to have a conversation, right? That's got to be said. I don't know.
It'll be over in a bit. If that happens, it'll be like they'll go have a laugh about it.
Hey
But
man,
Devin
sorry
Williams,
about that.
Devin Williams, when he faces him in spring training, will definitely have to gear things
Pete
up
should
a
strike
little
out
bit.
on purpose, I think. If they face off in spring training, throw him a bone.
If they had a tip on him, which I think they did,
Yeah.
that conversation will be had in spring training regardless. Or if it's probably already happened, they're like, hey, we know you were doing this.
Yeah.
So one of those kinds of things. But I don't think the Edwin Diaz possibly being the all-time save leader for the Mets plays any part.
It matters to me, though.
It does, but you're Gary. You're assuming that this guy stays healthy, that he stays elite, that they don't replace him at the back end of the bullpen somewhere down the road. These are the question marks that you're going to get with signing a guy like this at his age to a 5-year deal. In Franco's day, you signed him. He was your closer, regardless of if his stuff left him. Not saying John Franco's did, but I watched plenty of guys that were elite late in their 30s. They're a completely different pitcher, not as effective, but they're still in every save situation because they're the closer. That doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
Harder to break those records. But the truth is, do they feel like they're willing to put 5 years? I think that's the biggest question mark. I don't think it's the AAV. I don't think it's the dollar amount because he's clearly worth it. It's do you want to be tied through for 5 years? Are you willing to do that? Should be interesting.
Yeah, Edwin Diaz entering his age 32 season, so that would take him through his age 36 season if it is a 5-year deal, which who knows? It could be even more. We have no idea.
True.
What I will say, you mentioned pitch hitting in this last note here. Ryan Helsley just got a 2-year, $34 million deal with the Orioles. It kind of feels like they played a similar card here of like they're capitalizing on lower value for a guy who has an elite resume and hoping they can get him back to where he was. I have the feeling that the Mets, for a little bit more, are operating under that same assumption with Devin Williams. But I will say, I like Williams on 3 years for 50 more so than I like the idea of bringing Helsley back on 2 years for 34. And I think Helsley needed to change the scenery anyway, but with pitch shipping, I hope that's a thing of the past with Devin Williams. And for Helsley's sake, too, I hope it's a thing of the past for him as well.
I like it for both teams.
Yeah.
I like it for the Orioles getting Helsley. You're right, though. The Mets couldn't bring him back.
No.
Even though he's worth it, and I think he'll be great this year, it just did not work out at all. The opposite of work out. And it just would have been a weird sign, and I think it would have just been a recipe for both sides to fail on that. So it's good for him to get out and get what he deserves on the market. And I think Devin Williams is a better fit anyway.
Yeah, and some other bullpen names to keep your eye on because it is a decently stacked market. There's obviously the aforementioned Edwin Diaz and Robert Suarez. Behind them, Kenley Jansen coming off a great year for the Angels. Pete Fairbanks, who got his arbitration value declined by the Rays. That's going to be really interesting. He's been reliable for a while. Kyle Finnegan, he's going to be entering his age 34 season, but he's been great for a little bit as well. David Robertson, old friend. You never know. He'll probably sign in June or something like that. And then our guy, Tyler Rogers, who the Mets traded for last year. I'd be very interested in bringing him back as well. So the Mets have options, and they're going to need to sign, I think, at least one of those guys to a 1 to 2 year deal to really shore up this bullpen because this bullpen was falling apart towards the end of the season, and they can't have that happen again.
The easy one for me would be Rogers.
I think so too, because he throws 80 games a year, man. Like, just sign me up.
And he's the most, even at his age, he's so reliable.
Yep.
He's so different than anybody else out there. It's just such a luxury to have in your bullpen. That'd be an easy one. He's going to have his choice of where he wants to go because everyone feels kind of similarly.
Yeah.
It all kind of depends on what he wants to do because he'll have multiple offers out there right around the same amount. Nobody's going to shed so much or offer him an extra year for, more money, but
Right.
he's going to have a plethora of options out there.
There's also going to be trade candidates as well. It's going to be very interesting. It is an off-season of change. And speaking of off-season of change, our last episode of Shea Station was a solo pod about the Brandon Nimmo for Marcus Semien trade. I was trying to corral my thoughts and separate nostalgia and emotion from the facts of the situation. But it was a trade that shook the baseball world for about 3 days. But I never got your thoughts on it, and neither did the Shea Station audience. You were a guy that played with Brandon. You guys were teammates. You know him well. I guess I want to get your raw thoughts on this, and then we'll kind of dive into the numbers and everything like that. But what was your reaction when you got the news of this?
I'm still sad.
Yeah.
That's the same. My first reaction and my first emotion is sadness because I know how much Brandon meant to the fans. Like you can see it from his early, career to where he is now and who he's become. These fans have watched him grow up,
Yeah.
become a man, evolve into, he started off as a great human and he's an even better person. Like we've seen him mature, truly. So, I think of the fans first. And then I think about my friend Brandon, who was so excited to be a Met for life when he signed that deal. He's been nothing but excited to be a first rounder out of Wyoming, to cash in for the team that took that shot on you, to kind of pay them back for choosing. That's kind of his whole thing. He's a loyalty guy.
Yeah.
He's a character guy. And so for him to waive his no trade clause, it has me thinking about that conversation that had to have happened between him and David Stearns. Stearns isn't known for his communication to players, and that is not a requirement of his job. He doesn't need to be able to talk to guys. They just, that's kind of the coaching staff. There had to have been a conversation there where they convinced Brandon that the best thing for him was to move on. I won't ask him about it over text, and
That's a
maybe
good
next
call.
time I see him, I just don't want to do that, reopen a wound for clicks for me. You know what I mean? But I would love to hear that conversation because I just know how much he wanted to be a Met and to stay. On the other side of that coin, I know Marcus Semien pretty well. We were in camp together in 2019.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I know all of the coaches and staff in Oakland that he came up with after he got traded over there. He's a part of the leadership with the Players Association, so I've seen him multiple times a year doing stuff like that. You're talking about intangibles, regardless of where Brandon growing up a Met, he doesn't have that. But Simeon's on equal par of the type of guy, different personality, but similar character kind of guy. Just a good person, strong-willed, loves his teammates, a great teammate. He's a hell of a worker, just like Brandon was. We talked about, I always think about Ron Washington and Ozzie Albies, that kind of combination. But before Ozzie and Ron, it was Semien and Ron over in Oakland, because this guy was a terrible defensive shortstop. And he turned him into a Gold Glove caliber shortstop and now Gold Glove second baseman. The guy just knows how to work. He's older. His offense has died down a little bit. I still think there's more left in the tank than what he's put up the last couple years. But it's 3 years versus 5 years left on Nimmo's deal. I think that plays to a factor. I think Nimmo's health is, he had some nicks in his resume this year that kind of has crept back up. I think that played a factor in them wanting to trade him. I like the deal for both teams, but I am heartbroken for Nimmo leaving. I think it gives the Mets flexibility to decide where they want to go next. they have to make a move for the outfield and an elite outfielder.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. But I get it, and I understand the upsetness that Mets fans have, and that I'm sure Brandon had.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned before, this is a Mets front office that does not act on nostalgia and fan service, and this move is pretty emblematic of all of that. I will say that Brandon Nimmo gave a really good, candid interview on MLB Network, I believe the day after the trade happened. He did say that he did have a long conversation with Stearns, which brought me a little bit of comfort. I think it would have hurt a lot more if he was totally blindsided by it. Obviously, he couldn't have been blindsided if he waived the no-trade clause, but it felt like there was a lot of prep going into this move, and they made him well aware and part of that decision. But it does stink because this is a guy that was going to break some all-time Met records. He mentioned in that MLB Network interview that it would have been him and David Wright as like the lone position players that spent all of their careers with the Mets at a productive level. And that part of it really stinks because I think about guys like Pete Alonso in that vein too, and part of my fan heart hopes that he can stay for that exact reason. You know, it's not just about breaking records, but it's just about being part of the franchise for long term and seeing all the ups and downs and being a franchise face. And having a guy like Nimmo represent your club is really cool because he's so good with the fans. He's so good with the media. That was another thing that really spoke to me. The media members that were saddened by it because you can tell that they loved interacting with him and loved having him part of the clubhouse as a representative of the team. But you nailed it on the head with kind of the nicks in the resume. Nimmo hasn't missed a lot of time these last 4 years, but he's been playing through a lot of injuries. There's been the plantar fasciitis. There's been recurring neck problems. I have to believe that these are sort of ominous signs that the Mets front office were thinking about when they factored in making this decision. I think really the goal of this was find a way to get someone to take the whole contract where the Mets weren't attached to any of that 2029 and 2030 salary at $20.5 million. Instead, they take on Simeon's contract. Simeon, I know this doesn't matter at all, but in the clubhouses that I've been in my short time working in baseball, Simeon, I think, is probably the nicest player I've ever talked to that's like been an MVP all-star candidate, like a really high echelon player. So kind, and I hope that he brings that same energy to the Mets clubhouse. You mentioned hard worker. You took the Ron Washington stuff out of my mouth because that was something I forgot to mention on the initial podcast that I totally regretted. He's the first success story of like Ron Washington completely fixing a guy's defense. He's not the first one? Who's the first one?
No, Ron Washington's been a coach.
Right. But like the first one I know of, I guess.
He's the most recent one besides Albies because, you know, the NL East, we watch that all the time and it's fun.
Yeah.
He did the same thing. Albies was already a decent defender and he brought him up to elite for a while. Simeon was horrible.
Right.
And he taught him basically from scratch how to play defense. Yeah. And he's excellent. And he's continued that work ethic. Just shows you like there's things that you can learn even at that level. And if you're willing to learn, like you can get better every day. And I think that's true.
Yeah. And with Simeon, the notion before the season was that if nothing else, he's going to play a minimum 160 games. He does not miss time. I believe it was a foul ball off his foot that made him miss time this year. An injury he also played through. I have to believe that factors into a little bit of the offensive decline. But also, even if Simeon is just a league average bat, the Mets are going to benefit so much from a much better defensive glove at second base up the middle with Lindor. I think the whole pitching staff benefits from that. The Mets were one of the worst defensive teams last year between their corner outfield spots and then some of the guys in the infield. So if nothing else, it is a run prevention proactive move, which is what we know is part of David Stearns' philosophy. It's also a long-term financial move, which I'm hoping that $20 million in the long term goes to someone else of star caliber, because that's now money in 2029 and 2030 that you just saved that you can give to Edwin Diaz or Kyle Tucker or Cody Bellinger. I don't know what that move is. Maybe it's a trade, but like we said with Devin Williams, this is very clearly a domino type move where there's going to be something that comes after it that completes the picture and can complete our opinions of it as well. But for now, it's just mostly sadness and nostalgia for me.
Yeah, man, I feel you. I feel it the exact same way. But the true question mark is what's next, because they have some holes.
They got lots of holes. Let's be real. They got lots of holes.
They do. Yeah. That's the biggest question for me is they have to sign an outfielder.
So let's do this exercise really quick. Let's go. So their lineup right now of guys that I think will be starting on opening day. It's Lindor at short. You have Soto on right, obviously. Semien at second base, because I don't think he's a trade and then trade again candidate. Alvey behind the dish, and I think Brett Beatty at third is safe. I think you can safely push that in. So that leaves,
for now,
you don't have a first baseman because Alonso's a free agent. You don't have a bona fide DH, and me and you have been begging for the Mets to get a bona fide DH since the inception of this show. And by the way, Kyle Schwarber is available. And you don't have a left fielder or center fielder, and I have to believe the Mets are looking at defense first guys at those two options as well. So that's 4 everyday lineup spots that you need to fill. You have a hodgepodge of prospects, but they're getting a little bit old to be still calling prospects, between Vientos and Ronnie Mauricio and Luis Angel Acuna and those guys. So a lot of spots on the Mets offense are open. A lot of spots in the Mets bullpen are open. And that's not even getting to what was the reason they failed last year, the starting rotation. So
once again, you said everything. It's the biggest question mark for me is that rotation.
Right. So let me ask you this. What between those 3 things, we just talked about the bullpen, we talked about the rotation. What right now on this day, December 2nd, is the thing that you would like the Mets to take care of the most? What is your most pressing need for the 2026 Mets? I know that's a tough question, but right now, what would it be? Where would you want all the resources to go?
I'll tell you, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Their rotation is okay enough to where they could start the year.
I think
they can't do it with their lineup that they have right
not
now.
At all. Yeah.
They have too many question marks. And to move on from Nimmo, I couldn't agree more that the rotation needs a front end starter by far.
Yes.
Like they need a guy that they can rely on. A Max Fried. You know?
That'd be cool.
Yeah, but they can't go in with Vientos slated at first.
No.
With Beatty, again, he earned a good shot, but the Vientos in 24 was better than Beatty in 25.
That's interesting. That's an interesting exercise. I don't know if I agree, honestly.
You don't know. I
know the postseason, really pushes that envelope, and Vientos he was absolutely necessary for us to make the playoffs in 24, but I still factor in run prevention. I just think Beatty is far and away a better defender than Vientos. Vientos has to be your DH.
I definitely think Beatty's a better defender than Vientos, more reliable. He's made that way. I wouldn't say he's elite at third base by any means.
Not at all. But I think you can see the difference.
Homers.
Yeah, that's true. Beatty hit 18.
There's question marks about Beatty. So that's like Beatty is the third baseman. I think he's earned that, but we've seen it before. Almost the exact same scenario from a prospect. Shit happens. Baseball's hard, man.
Like hitting one bad month. It's the same shit that happened with Vientos. If Beatty comes out in 26 and has a bad April, you're like, all right, fuck, we're at square one again.
Yeah, happened with Alvarez. He got optioned down for crying out loud. Yeah. So hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do in sports. Even harder to do it consistently.
Hot take.
But Alvarez is your catcher. I believe in him. But the question marks everywhere else. Mauricio, Luis Angel Acuna.
Are they anything?
Tyrone Taylor's your starting center fielder. I love the guy.
I love Tyrone.
I do too. I think he's a great piece to have on your team. But if you have Lindor and Soto in your lineup, you gotta do more.
Yeah, you gotta do more.
So to me, the biggest question mark is filling out that lineup, because you can piecemeal your rotation together and then make additions during the season. I think the bullpen will need to be addressed second. I think, because they need to fill it in. Again, you can do some things with that, but it's lineup needs to make sense to me for if you're trying to compete this year, which there's no reason for you not to. I mean, you can't punt this year, right? I
don't think you can punt this year. I mean, you're in year 2 of Soto. I mean, Lindor, I'm not saying that he's slowing down by any means, but he is 32. Like it's entering the back half of the contract now. You have to factor that in as well. Like the front half has been nothing short of an astounding success, but also you pay these large deals for the front half, and we're entering the back half. So I'm saying they need to act with a little bit of urgency if they want to, compete with this core. I think that's the truth.
Here's my biggest worry about this coming year is I think they might be punting a year. I'm worried that that's what's happening.
That would suck.
There's no obvious choice for who you're going after on the front end. I mean, if you trade for Skubal, then this whole thing changes.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know how they do that. But
that's going to take so much.
Yeah. This is, I think, the most difficult offseason that they've faced so far. Because I think last year was an insane class of talent in the free agent market. And they came away with the grand prize, which is insane. And then I think the year before, they just hit on all of their reclamation projects between Quintana and Luis Severino and, Vientos blossoming and all that. Like a lot went right that year for them. This year, they can only really bank on, let's say, 2 guys in their lineup, 1 guy in their rotation, maybe 2, and then as of right now, 1 guy in their bullpen. So that's 5 guys on a 26-man roster where you have 20 question marks. So I personally don't see them going out and spending all of this money on the free agent market to just plug in all those holes. I think they're going to do a lot of what they did last year, which is, looking at the pile of arms on the minor league free agent market and stuff like that, and working in a trade or 2. But I think it's going to be a situation where they're going to take a lot of risks and enter the year with a lot of question marks. The thing is, can they make a big move or 2 to make you feel better about those question marks? Whether that big move is a trade for a front end guy like Pablo Lopez, like Joe Ryan, if you want to dream on it, Tarek Skubal, and then can you get one of those big fish in the free agent market like Kyle Tucker, like Cody Bellinger? But do you feel good about the team even if they do those moves? I don't know. That's why I've been kind of tepid about the whole Mets offseason, because the fact that they didn't even make the playoffs in 2025 obviously left a bitter taste in everyone's mouth, but also left a bitter taste for, this offseason outlook doesn't look good. Like you're locked into a lot of things, and there's just so much emptiness around that right now, if that makes sense.
I mean, yes, I don't know the direction that you go.
I don't know either.
And that's part of what's scary. I feel like Edwin Diaz, if you sign him to that deal, is a win now move.
I think that,
2 years.
Isn't that really that'll tell us kind of if they get priced out on Diaz and they say we're not going to commit to this, it tells me that we're going to bide our time in 2026, which would be a letdown.
Yes, but would it be the right move? Because you're going to, Juan Soto is going to be a year older, but he's still, I think
27.
I think he's 15.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So, but then you build it around, guess who's a free agent next year for sure?
Who's that?
Derek Skubal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
do you just wait for that? But do the Tigers extend him? I don't know.
He's not, no offense to the Tigers.
Wow.
They can't,
Tigers fans listening are irate.
I'm surrounded by a lot of them here. It would take, I don't think they're, RIP to Illich, that he's not around anymore to lock that guy up.
Yeah.
So who knows? I am huge question marks for me on what they do. So
yeah, and we can only speculate so much. We didn't even bring up Jeff McNeil on this. Like, who knows what the hell his role is? Is he also traded? I expect that we're going to have a lot more podcasts in December. That's what I'll say about this. I think they're going to do a lot. But I just
Jeff
don't know.
McNeil is my last remaining teammate.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
I know.
It's fucked up. Jeez.
Nimmo left me, and now Jeff McNeil is my last remaining Mets teammate.
I guess you never played with Alvy. That doesn't make sense.
No.
Lindor.
I mean, we were together in Brooklyn,
that's kind of cool.
At the alt site.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I guarantee you, he has no idea. He cannot remember me. I threw to him like 45 times, but he was, again,
I'd love to ask him just to see. Does Minter count? Were you guys Braves teammates in 19?
Oh shit, you're right. Okay. That counts, but we were teammates with the Braves.
That's a little curse, but I'll take it.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's a curveball. So I still will have one.
All right. Well, I think that's all we got for this podcast, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Let us know in the comments down below what you think about the Devin Williams signing. Make sure you leave a like on the video if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on a podcast app, leave us a rating or a review. That stuff really helps. Click the link at the top of the description to shop Field of Dreams Whiskey right now. Check out their new line, the 2025 All-Star Whiskey. Get your dad or your girlfriend's dad or your boyfriend's dad a Christmas present. Get it out of the way.
Your mom.
Or your mom. I don't want to discriminate. Yeah. That's my bad.
My aunt loves cigars and bourbon, which is one of my favorite things.
Kind of badass. My mom hates cigars and bourbon. And thank you so much for listening to our show. Jerry, you got anything else?
That's it, man. Thank you so much. It's great getting the team back together.
Absolutely. You know what? I'm hoping we're back on the mic sooner rather than later. I'll say that.
It'd be great. Let's go Mets.
We will see you next time. Where we'll be back.
Station.